Alright guys, we're back on Ordoairsoft, and today we're going to be looking at the Run Cam action camera. Alright, we just picked up this Airsoft Run Cam action camera online. This camera's purpose is to essentially mount on your airsoft gun to use as a scope camera or some sort of a gun camera. They sell different ones. They sell the long range one, which is what we bought. We bought the 40mm lens. They also sell a mid-range lens and a close range lens. So the reason why we're doing this video is just an introductory video on the capabilities of the camera. We typically don't do unboxing videos, but in this video we're just going to go over the basic capabilities of this camera. So inside the box we have our user manual, and then we have our camera. So first off, we'll start off with camera dimensions. So the camera is just under 4.5 inches in length, and it's just over an inch in width. The camera has one Wi-Fi button, one on-off switch. It has a USB-C port, and it also has a micro SD port. So the way this camera works is very simple. So this forward button right here is just for the Wi-Fi. That's all that button does. And this switch right here controls the camera. So when it's in the back position, it's off. And when you switch it forward, you can see the red there. That means the camera is turned on. And also this LED turns red, and the back LED on the back side turns red. That's how you know the camera is recording. So whenever that switches forward, the camera is recording. And if you pull the switch backwards, the camera will vibrate and both those LEDs will turn off. That signals that it stops recording. And if you ever turn the camera on and this LED starts flashing quickly along with that LED, that means that either your card is full or there's no card currently in the camera. So you got to make sure you have a card in, because it doesn't have any internal storage. And this camera has its own battery inside of it. The way you charge it is just through the standard USB-C charging port. And typically when people use these for airsoft, they'll plug an external battery into that plug so it constantly charges it. We have not tested this camera very much yet, so we do not know the full capability of the battery. And this camera is essentially designed to mount on the rail. So you can see it has a little rail mount on the bottom. And the way this works is there's two pieces that go on the Picatinny rail. You essentially back this screw out all the way and you push it forward, pushing those apart, and then put it on your rail, let it come back, and then you screw this screw in, which will lock it to your rail. So we're going to go ahead and mount the camera to this 4CRL here. So before we mount it, obviously we want to mount it in a way that it's not going to be blocked by anything. So right now we can't mount it right here because the iron sight is in the way, so we're going to have to move that. And also another thing you want to consider is if you grip over the rail, like if your hand is right here, you don't want to mount it behind there because your hand's going to block the camera's view. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this iron sight, move it back, and we're going to take the camera and put it all the way at the end of the rail, so that way there's nothing impeding the camera's view downrange. Alright, so as you can see, we mounted the Scope Cam 2 to the rail. So as you can see, we mounted it really far forward. You guys don't have to mount it this far forward. We just did that so that way we can maintain somewhat of a normal grip with a thumbs forward grip. And the port, you can see, you can still access the port. Obviously the port's going to be blocked if you raise the iron sight. But if you're planning on running a external battery, another thing you can do is mount it on the bottom as well. But just keep in mind, if you do mount it on the bottom, you're not going to be able to access the buttons as easily. And it's nice having it on the top because you can just put your thumb forward and push forward to turn on the camera. So if you wanted to, you could drag this back on the rail. That way if you were to hit something, it wouldn't cause as much impact on the actual lens. So you could pull that back if you wanted to. We just mounted it there just so it's as forward as possible on the rail. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to disassemble this camera, because every time we get something new on this channel, we have to disassemble it. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to remove the lens. So to do that, pick up the camera, and you're going to rotate this counterclockwise. As you can see, there's some O-rings in there, and we're going to gently pull this off. So what we've just pulled off is the protective lens. This is essentially a sacrificial lens designed for airsoft, so just in case the camera gets shot, this is the lens that will shatter. And what we're left with is essentially the zoom lens itself. So the zoom lens has a little foam barrier around it to protect from vibration when inside this sacrificial lens. And these lenses are replaceable. They do sell them on their website. And this right here is as far as we're going to go with taking it apart. This lens can come off. I believe it's semi-permanently attached, so we're not going to mess around too much with that. We don't want to break anything, but we wanted to show you that this lens can come off. It does have O-rings on it, and it is replaceable in case it does get shot out. And this sacrificial lens is made of some sort of Lexan plastic, and this exterior is a aluminum exterior, so it's good quality. Also, the outside of the camera, this part is plastic, and the front part right here is the same type of aluminum as the insert is. Alright, so we put the protective lens back on. One thing to be careful of when you're putting this protective lens back on is you do not want to cross thread it. It's very easy to cross thread, and with these small aluminum threads, if you do cross thread it, it will damage the threads on it. So you don't want to do that. Make sure you take your time and line it up right. Maybe even back it up a little bit and then thread it on, so you make sure it's lined up. Another thing we should mention as well is they sell different versions of this camera, and not only the different lens types like I already mentioned, they sell different resolutions. So this right here is the 1080p resolution camera, but they also sell a 4K resolution camera, and they sell it in the same zoom types, so you can buy the same exact camera in a better resolution. So now we're going to go outside and mount this camera on the 4CRL and try it on our test range. Alright, so we just got done doing some test shots with the scope cam. And one thing we noticed is you're definitely going to want to have another microphone, because the microphone on the scope cam is very dull. So you'll need to crank it up in the editing process. That's one thing you're going to need to consider. Also, the range on this camera is really good. We were shooting at about 23 yards. I think it was 23.6 yards. And it comes in perfectly zoomed in. So I would say if you're going to be shooting at that type of distance, definitely go with a long range camera. If you're going to go with CQB, this would be way too long of range for that. So if you're going to go for CQB, I would go for the short lens camera option. And also the 1080p, we found that it also shoots 60 frames a second. So that's a good improvement. You can cut it down to 30 if you want to do slow motion and do half speed. That's going to be something that we're going to experiment with. So you'll definitely be seeing this scope cam in some future videos. We're going to continue testing with it, and we'll post videos as we learn more about the camera. So if you guys like this video, be sure to leave a comment down below, and we'll see you guys in the next video.